Welcome to The Laundry, the podcast connecting AML, compliance, and financial crime to the real world. Did you know that the illegal wildlife trade is the fourth biggest criminal market on the planet, behind only narcotics, counterfeiting, and human trafficking? And it's not just animals, it's plants, timber, marine life, and the products made from them. Ivory, rhino horn, pangolin skins. All feeding markets for exotic pets, traditional medicine, luxury fashion, and specialty foods. And like any criminal trade this size, there's a hugely sophisticated network behind it, making billions. I'm your host, Marit, CEO of Strise, and in this episode, we are asking, can following the money disrupt the illegal wildlife trade? We'll be discussing how this illegal trade moves through the financial system, how crypto and online marketplaces have supercharged the industry, and what tools can help us fight back. And we are recording live at the United for Wildlife Business Forum in London, set up by the Royal Foundation. Some of the world's biggest banks, tech, and crypto companies are here unveiling major new actions to follow the money behind the trade. And to dive into this topic, I'm delighted to be joined by Esteban Castano, CEO and co-founder of TRM Labs, and Trisha Raxter, Director of Intelligence and Analysis at United for Wildlife. Welcome to The Laundry, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll find out your expertise as we go, but give us like the elevator pitch of both your organizations. Let's start with you, Esteban.
Sure. TRM is an intelligence and investigations company. We specialize in mapping criminal networks and working with law enforcement agencies, financial institutions to disrupt crime.
That's good. We need more of those. And you, give us the elevator pitch of the Royal Foundation.
United for Wildlife is a program of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. It was founded about 10 years ago with the idea of bringing together law enforcement, banks, transport companies, and NGOs to disrupt wildlife trafficking. And now we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary, bringing in new partners from the crypto industry, from tech, all with the idea of utilizing the gravitas and the platform of Prince William and the Royal Foundation to bring together these organizations to commit to working together to fight wildlife trafficking.
And congrats on the 10-year anniversary. And let's just go into the discussion and start by looking at the scale of the issue, because you guys have been working on this for 10 years. And now you're also bringing new partners on board and also companies like your company as well. So is it been an issue that wildlife trafficking has traditionally been treated more as a conservation issue rather than a financial crime issue, and now it's kind of changing? What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's been a huge challenge in the past. Folks didn't really recognize that wildlife trafficking is serious organized crime. It's a financial crime. It's a transport, finance, logistics, shipping challenge, supply chain challenge. Wildlife is trafficked globally. It is, as you noted, worth hundreds of billions of dollars a year. About 6,000 species are involved in the illegal trade. So this is a tremendous problem. It goes much further than protected area management or anti-poaching. It needs to really involve sophisticated investigations, intelligence, financial investigations, and collaboration across the transnational space. Otherwise, wildlife traffickers are just going to continue running circles around us.
And you, Esteban, when was like wildlife trafficking and the financial crime aspect brought to your attention, and like what's your thoughts around it and the scale of it, and from your experience, what have you seen?
I think what we've seen over the last 5 years is wildlife trafficking increasingly moving online in terms of where the commerce is taking place, and also increasingly using cryptocurrency. And one of our specialties at TRM is tracing how criminals use and launder proceeds of crime in crypto. Last year, we unmasked a wildlife trafficking network in Southeast Asia that was moving rhino horn, ivory, tiger parts. We found wallets that had moved $15 million in cryptocurrency, and we referred it to law enforcement. But that's just one case, and there's obviously enormous opportunity to leverage more financial intelligence to map out these networks and ultimately disrupt them.
But that's so fascinating to just like that we can actually use technology to dismantle this problem now. And it's such like a heartbreaking issue too, wildlife trade, when you hear about like what is actually going on, these animals, and like, ugh, it just breaks my heart. But Trisha, you've written countless intelligence alerts on this trade for banks and financial institutions. And you've also said that traffickers are endlessly creative, finding new species and new markets. And for someone coming into this fresh, can you explain some of the creativity that you've been seeing? What is like the latest innovation in wildlife trade?
Yeah, well, I'll touch on a little bit of what Esteban said. First of all, the challenge is the online trade. Commerce has totally changed. If you think about 20 or 30 years ago, you might need to go physically in person to a market to buy a wildlife product. Markets were more niche, so you would see different wildlife trafficked in Asia than you would in Latin America. E-commerce, social media has completely transformed all of that. Traffickers don't need to travel to source wildlife. They can link with networks across the globe, easily build trust. They can pay online with all these payment platforms, cryptocurrency, et cetera. The easy flow of goods, it has absolutely transformed the space. Another thing we're seeing that is incredibly troubling is the commingling of legal and illegal trade, which is making everything much more complex. So we use the term green-collar crime and wildlife laundering. So when you think about white-collar crime, it's document fraud, it's money laundering, it's all these things that are incredibly complex to uncover. It's the same thing with wildlife. So wildlife that's being sourced illegally is being commingled through registered entities, zoos, breeders, other commercial enterprises, leather producers, pharmaceutical companies. They're mingling these products, and it makes it incredibly difficult for law enforcement to uncover the illegal activity and for consumers even to have any clue that they're buying a product that's been trafficked. And then the last thing, the exotic pet trade. This is where we're really, really seeing the creativity. So these folks are using e-commerce, online trade. They're using registered entities to traffic products, using social media influencers to drive the trade. And we're seeing now exotic pet trade where even just normal pets were quite unusual in Africa and other places where even owning a cat or dog in the past was unusual. People want rare lizards, turtles, snakes, primates, birds. The trade has really become global. So we went from niche black markets in person to you can buy anything. And I keep thinking of the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
That's how wildlife trafficking feels to me now. Absolutely. It's a truly global marketplace where in the past I think it was more niche. It was still a problem, but it's expanded sourcing and expanded markets.
You called it green-collar crime?
Yeah, I think it's a really useful
term.
Yeah, I think it's a really useful term to understand
I
what's
haven't heard it before,
happening.
so I'm really glad you pointed it out. And like to our listeners, all these compliance professionals, they should like remember this word and like stick it to your mind because people should know more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. These criminals are experts in the trade. So just like a white-collar criminal in real estate would understand everything about the laws and know exactly how to subvert them, it's the same with these breeders and commercial entities. They understand the permitting. They claim paperwork violations when in reality they're very clearly involved in wildlife trafficking, but they take advantage of the fact that customs and law enforcement just doesn't have that expertise. And again, consumers often have no clue what they're consuming. I think we've been, especially social media influencers driving trade, folks see somebody handling wildlife online and they assume it's okay. It becomes normalized when in reality your love of wildlife should encourage you to not interact with wildlife.
And also I do think maybe that, well, right now there's of course the huge surge in fraud, and I mean fraud has also been pointed as like a national threat in the US, UK, Germany, several other countries. And then with the big focus on fraud, it's easy that green-collar crime can also fly a bit under the radar right now when fraud is such in the spotlight. But yeah, green-collar crime. But as I understand you, it's becoming very professionalized, using entities, businesses, you kind of mingle it with legal, like mixing the legal and illegal together, making it harder. But Esteban, what are some of the like red flags or patterns that you guys have seen, or maybe someone working in compliance and AML in a bank should look for? Is there anything you can share?
Absolutely. I think by the time the proceeds hit a bank, oftentimes it's not even the trafficker themselves or the poacher. It's the broker, it's the shipping company, it's the intermediary. And so a lot of the red flags look like traditional red flags you would look for in money laundering cases. You would look for hey, this person is a relative of somebody else. They just opened up an account. Or, hey, we're seeing transactions to high-risk jurisdictions. We're seeing transactions with labels that might refer to traditional medicine. You're seeing shipping companies that have unusually high volume all of a sudden. And so it's any of those like traditional red flags that might be associated with money laundering. It's on that closer inspection that you say, oh, that's interesting. This is related to a pet store, or this is, buying cages. Literally,
Yeah.
you'll see things like that that might give you a hint that there could be wildlife trafficking.
And also on chain, on the crypto side of things, what are some of the like patterns or red flags that you guys have spotted? Maybe talk about, or the case that you mentioned, like what was it that you saw on chain that made you think, okay, this is green collar crime?
Yeah, it's interesting. By the time that you take proceeds of wildlife trade, and if there's payment in cryptocurrency, folks will often use a broker. And that broker will have wallets on the blockchain that have large amounts of volume. The transnational organized crime groups that are behind the wildlife trade are the same groups that are involved in human trafficking and industrialized scams and even narcotics trafficking, or they're involved in the laundering of those predicate offenses. And so you'll often find large wallets on the blockchain that are moving tens of millions of dollars and have connections to other types of illicit activity. You might also see connections to, if you're like a typical retail customer, you might be cashing out at a couple different exchanges. If you're a broker that's laundering proceeds of crime, you might be sending funds from that wallet to dozens of different exchanges across many different jurisdictions. So one of the things that TRM does is we surface that type of intelligence to our customers. We have cryptocurrency businesses, financial institutions, payment companies. They use our data to glean insights from the blockchain. So when somebody makes a deposit, they're able to see, oh, that the address that sent funds here is also depositing funds at 15 other exchanges in the last 7 days. That doesn't look like a retail customer, doing typical transactions. That looks like somebody trying to obfuscate the source of funds and break it up into small pieces to launder those funds. One of the things that's so interesting about crypto is you have a lot more transparency than you have in traditional banking. Like in traditional banking, you can see your immediate counterparty, but with crypto, all of the transactions are logged in this public ledger called a blockchain. And so you can actually zoom out and see the entire network graph. And that gives financial institutions, I think there's this misconception that crypto is inherently more risky. But arguably, crypto actually has better financial crime controls because you're able to look back multiple hops when you get a deposit to be able to understand the entire network behind that transaction.
That's true. But in your experience, in this green collar crime, how is this kind of tangled up with other types of financial crime risks like corruptions and sanctions and trade-based money laundering? Have you guys seen anything on how these things overlap?
Well, we certainly know that corruption informs every part of the supply chain in wildlife trafficking. And the green-collared criminals know exactly how to work with corrupt officials to obtain documents that they need, permits for transporting animals within a country, for determining that animals are quote-unquote captive bred, that have been wild caught. They know exactly how to game the system, and it's often through corruption and bribery. So that it's a huge challenge, again, all across the supply chain. They corrupt customs officials at the port, folks who work in airline and shipping industry, logistics companies have been found to be deeply involved in wildlife trafficking. It's a tremendous challenge, but I think working with the crypto firms and working with the banks is really a way to help uncover those criminal nodes and discover individuals in these networks that may never touch wildlife at all, but are benefiting from the wildlife trade and really driving it. But I think that education piece has really been challenging with law enforcement to get them to fully appreciate how much a financial institution and financial investigations can reveal about these criminal networks. And I think it'll be a real game changer with the crypto as well. But that will be a challenge to get law enforcement to fully appreciate what they can provide. And I think vice versa, the banks for a long time really didn't understand what wildlife trafficking looked like in their supply chains and didn't fully appreciate that wildlife trafficking was occurring.
Because this is also because now sitting here in central London talking about this particular type of crime, it's so easy to think like, oh, I'm sure that was, that is in Africa or like far away in Southeast Asia. It feels very distant and remote. But what could you, because our listeners are mainly in the UK and the US, what can you say to them to make it feel the sort of closeness and urgency on it, and that it's happening where we are as well, not just some distant place far away?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. There's so many stereotypes about wildlife trafficking, and that's the number one stereotype, right? That it's elephants and rhinos going from Africa to Asia or tigers within Asia. Wildlife trafficking happens everywhere. There was actually a massive tiger trafficking network in the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? It's the last place you would think, but they have a huge Vietnamese community as a legacy from communism, and the Vietnamese are big tiger consumers. And where there are consumers, there's consumption and there's wildlife trafficking. The U.S. is actually the largest, one of the largest markets for trafficked wildlife. And again, people have no idea what they're buying. They go to the pet store to buy a glass frog or a rare lizard. They don't realize that those are not captive bred animals. They have been trafficked in on falsified documents, falsified licenses. So no, we're all involved. And in the UK, it's very interesting. There's a real brisk trade in peregrine falcon eggs.
Really?
Yes, and so the UK has worked so hard to reintroduce and protect their falcons, but you have these repeat traffickers who they'll rob the nests of the eggs. Yeah, it's fascinating. They strap them to their bodies, and now they have these special incubators they use in their suitcases, and they take them to the Middle East where these hunting birds are really in, not in fashion, it's more of a traditional, a traditional part of their culture that has been revived in the last couple of decades as people sort of seek out, really want to reinforce their identities. It's a really fascinating trade. But now, just because I'm talking about the bird's eggs,
yeah.
it's a huge issue now. A massive, massive trade in bird eggs from South Africa to Taiwan. They'll raise the birds and sell them in southern China for tens of millions of dollars. It's a massive, massive trade.
I've worked now in the kind of financial crime space for 4.5 years. I don't know if you share this observation, Esteban, but you're always so shocked at the new creative ways that what people do to make money. It's just like, okay, you sit around and think about this for the whole day, and you're like, oh, let's go out and steal some bird nests to make money. It's like all these examples that I've learned throughout the past 4 years. You're just so shocked to think that, okay, this is what people spend their day on, and coming up with these creative ideas to make money.
Did you hear that? That's an analyst playing email tennis with a client, chasing documents, waiting on data, sending another follow-up, and another and another. Strise automates the routine cases that never needed a human in the first place. The ones that are low risk, predictable, and take up time that belongs elsewhere. Analysts stay in the loop for the decisions that actually need them, and every decision is logged, traceable, and ready for audit. Welcome to the Autonomous FinCrime Department.
The one with humans in the loop.
Book a demo at strise.ai.
We've talked in depth about the issue now. Let's look at how we fight back and the next 10 years, because Esteban, United for Wildlife, is moving into crypto for the first time, and TRM is at the center of it, and you're in a working group with PayPal, Chainalysis, Tether, and Luno. So why is crypto, of all places, where this coordinated fight back is starting, and what will you guys do in practice moving forward?
One of the things that's unique about crypto is that, again, the transactions are public, and you can inspect those transactions and you can glean insights about the networks. And because the transactions are public, not only can you, again, map the networks and better understand the brokers that they're using, the shipping companies that they're using, the different financial intermediaries, but you can also use it to accelerate the freezing of those assets. So wildlife trade, for the criminals, they don't care about the animals.
Yeah.
They care about money.
Yeah.
They care about profit. And like any business, it only survives if it's profitable. And one of the things that financial institutions are uniquely positioned to do is help make the business unprofitable by driving up the costs and clawing back the revenue.
Yeah.
We launched what is now the largest public-private disruption network for freezing illicit assets. It includes over 60 financial institutions, cryptocurrency businesses around the world, over 50 law enforcement agencies around the world. It's a network that enables law enforcement to flag wallets that are holding proceeds of crime. And then our technology will trace those funds automatically as they move downstream. When the funds hit a cash out point, we notify that exchange, hey, you've got incoming funds that are linked to X illicit activity. And that exchange can put a temporary compliance hold on those funds, which gives law enforcement time to follow up with an official seizure warrant or official paperwork. That network we launched last year, it's already been used to freeze over 50 million tied to fraud, hacks, terror financing. One of the things that we're doing with this new working group within United for Wildlife is expanding the Beacon network to cover wildlife trafficking. And so as global law enforcement agencies are building these cases and they're identifying wallets that are used in this trade, they can flag those funds, and the crypto industry can work to freeze those funds and ultimately make a dent on the business model.
That's exciting. I'm really hope that we're able to then stop 50 million in green collar crime when this is launched. How excited are you about this, and what's your hopes? How impactful do you think it can be?
Honestly, I think it could really be a game changer because, as we noted, wildlife trafficking occurs. It occurs everywhere, certainly in local niche markets. But the real wildlife trafficking and the real money is online. Folks have figured out how to exploit cryptocurrency, exploit other payment platforms. But now with real partnerships, I think we can catch up to where the criminals are. Unfortunately, they're almost always one step ahead. But I think there's a real opportunity here.
Yeah.
And I think it will. So I think the 50 million will be a drop in the bucket. We will find much more valuable illicit financial flows and hopefully be able to disrupt them.
And information sharing is one of those things that's like endlessly discussed at AML Financial Crime Conference. I'm sure you have you've been part of those discussions as well. And it seems never kind of properly implemented. Everywhere I go, people are like, we need more information sharing. But you are now launching Project Pangolin. Can you guys talk to our listeners about Project Pangolin?
Yeah, of course.
Pangolin.
So
Pangolin, yeah.
Information sharing without action is just trivia. You cannot pat yourself on the back simply because you shared information with somebody. You pat yourself on the back when you share information and they take action that disrupts the underlying activity you're going after. And so we like to, instead of saying public-private information sharing partnerships, we like to say public-private disruption networks, because we're all in the business of disrupting this activity. Project Pangolin is an information sharing platform with the goal of sharing intelligence to more quickly take down listings across the web for the animal parts. It's an information sharing platform where we can share intelligence around the financial networks. It's an information sharing so that we can freeze assets. Information sharing platform so we can share intelligence around the companies and the individuals involved in the trade so that we can make it more difficult for them to open up bank accounts and for them to facilitate trade. And so we're very much focused on the action. Project Pangolin, there's a technology layer, which is essentially a digital workspace where we can share selectors, reports, intelligence. We have an AI layer on top that enables people to query that intelligence and operationalize it. Information sharing for a long time within AML was sending emails with CSV attachments that go into a black box of nowhere and they never get used.
And hard to action.
And I think AI is a technology where it can make intelligence a lot more accessible to people because they can conversationally query information that's being shared between people. So we're really excited about Project Pangolin. It's really any organization, whether you're in telecom, shipping, a financial institution, you're a law enforcement agency, everyone's welcome to join this digital workspace to collaborate.
Really cool. Maybe AI is what will come and help us fight this crime after all and get like everyone together to share the information, because it seems super fragmented if you think about the green collar crime, like so many different species across all continents. It's so many different types of actors involved in making it happen and scaling it up. It just seems like global fragmented industry that we can, or hopefully maybe this can be brought together in a sense and everyone can really, really help fight back on it. And I'm excited. I'll follow that project closely. All right, final questions before we're going to do some quick fire questions and round off the episode. A lot of passionate people have been working on this type of crime for a long time, like rangers, treaties, conservation funding. It's been going on for decades, and the trade is still worth up to 23 billion. If following the money is really the answer, why do you think it's taken up until now to kind of put that on the agenda to fight this crime?
I think it took a long time, partly for the education piece, as we talked about earlier. I think it's difficult to communicate the challenges of wildlife trafficking, again, because of all the stereotypes that we carry with us. So the education piece, I think, was pretty difficult. But now the banks are on board, the transport companies are on board. They absolutely want to do everything they can to disrupt wildlife trafficking through their supply chains. And now, after 10 years working together, United for Wildlife has formed this incredible network of like-minded individuals, like-minded companies, and now the idea of working with the tech industry, and again, getting closer to crypto, which is obviously really emerging in this space. I think it'll be an absolute game changer. And now we can scale up solutions and supercharge information sharing, but yeah, just like really, really bolstering collaborations. And I think it makes a tremendous difference what Prince William and the Royal Foundation has been able to do. I mean, their convening power is so obvious. They are able to, get real commitments from companies, from across multiple industries, governments. It's exciting. It's energizing.
All right. Before we end this episode, I'm going to do some quick fire questions for you. I'll say a question and just the first thing that pops into your mind. Okay. One red flag every compliance analyst should be able to spot when looking for wildlife trafficking.
I think a company, or like a newly formed company or zoo with no physical presence and no real online presence, transacting in the millions of dollars. Happens all the time.
That doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense.
Look at it and spot it and report it. Esteban?
If you're a compliance analyst at a cryptocurrency exchange, I would say a deposit from a large unhosted wallet that has outgoing transactions to more than a dozen unique exchanges located in different countries, red flag.
What species or product would most people be shocked to learn moves through the financial system?
The trade in invertebrates has absolutely exploded. So this is part of the exotic pet trade trend, but things like tarantulas, scorpions, even harvester ants, cockroaches, you name it, vampire crabs, these animals that are easy to keep, or quote unquote easy to keep, in a small apartment or a house, and it makes people feel like they're part of this exotic pet trend. Unfortunately, it has like really serious negative impacts on the environment, and often the animals die. I mean, most animals, exotic animals, die within 1 year of captivity.
That's a fact people should know.
They should know.
What's wrong with people? Why are you doing this? Ugh,
they
I get
should
so
know.
annoyed when I hear this. Like, what? Is this really happening?
Even the harvester ants, I'm learning about them because the trade has exploded. The queen ants can literally live to be 45 years old. I mean, that's almost a human lifespan.
Yeah.
So
don't take them into an apartment.
Take them.
Don't buy them. Okay, Esteban, what species or product would most people be shocked to learn moves through the financial system?
Donkey skins.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you
Why
for
would
saying
people
that.
get donkey skins?
They use it to make
Ijao.
ijao. That's the name.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's a gelatin made from the donkey skin. So the skins are boiled, and it's used in a tonic and many other products now. And
Like a tonic that you drink?
That you would drink, but it's also been marketed and commodified to be in creams and all kinds of products. And now, I don't know if you know this, Esteban, but even the donkey bone trade has massively
Donkey bones?
Donkey bones as well.
And to Trisha's point, this is something that is happening in the U.S. I think you're seeing donkeys being exported from the U.S. to Mexico to be slaughtered for their skins.
Absolutely. Literally millions of donkeys are killed each year. And the thing is, a lot of people argue donkeys aren't wildlife, so why does United for Wildlife care about donkeys? We care about donkeys because they are, the donkey trade is often convergent with the illegal wildlife trade. It's the same networks who are trafficking other exotic species, lions, pangolins, et cetera. We see the exact same networks trafficking these animals to the same markets. So there's a tremendous amount of convergence. It's a serious problem.
This did not turn into a quickfire question at
Sorry.
all. We went in deep into it.
I'm not good at that.
I see our time is up. Other people are waiting. But where can people find and connect with you if they want to continue this conversation or dive deeper into this topic?
Just Google United for Wildlife. All our information is there, and the answer is always yes. If you want to learn more about wildlife and find out how you can fight wildlife trafficking, we will absolutely help in every way we can.
Email wildlife@trmlabs.com.
Yeah.
We'd love to work with you on information sharing, on disrupting this type of activity.
Encourage all of our listeners who work in financial institutions to check that out. Please get involved and engaged in this problem. Thanks to everyone who was listening. I don't have time to do the outro, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter. We can do it later.